I didn't realize it at first. It wasn't something anyone told me directly. I only noticed when my child slowly stopped asking questions. That morning, I moved through my routine like usual. My hands prepared breakfast while my mind kept counting what was left. I was there, but not really present. He sat quietly at the table, drawing with full attention. Usually, he would call me again and again. That day, he didn't call me even once. I told myself he was just concentrating. I thought maybe this was part of growing up. I didn't realize he was quietly observing me all along. When I finally looked at his drawing, something felt different. It wasn't just lines or colors anymore. It quietly showed me what he had been seeing. My name is Clara, and I've learned how to look like everything is under control. Most days, I move through routines without questioning them. Feels easier that way. Each morning begins the same way, one task leading quietly into another. I follow the rhythm without stopping. It keeps the day moving forward. I've gotten used to putting my own worries aside. As long as my child seems fine, I tell myself it's enough. I rarely look deeper than that. My husband has been quieter lately. Not distant, just carrying something I can't quite reach, and I've chosen not to ask. We still sit together at the end of the day. The space is shared, but the silence stays. It's a quiet kind of distance. I thought my child wouldn't notice, that adult concerns would stay out of reach. Underestimated how much they feel. They've started spending more time alone. Fewer questions, fewer interruptions. I told myself it was just a phase. But maybe it isn't a phase at all. Maybe it's how they're adjusting without saying a word, to changes they don't fully understand. I started noticing the small things I used to overlook. The way he looks at us when the room goes quiet. The way he slowly pulls back when the energy shifts. He never asks about money, not even once. But somehow he notices when my thoughts are elsewhere. Children don't need explanations to understand patterns. I used to believe strength meant holding everything in, not letting worry show, not letting it spill into the room. That was my version of being a good mother. But now I find myself questioning that silence. Does it really protect him, or does it create distance? I wonder if he feels alone in ways I didn't see before. I look back at my days and see how much runs on autopilot. Tasks completed without pause, without presence, as if being efficient replaced being connected. I'm physically there, moving through the house like always, but my mind keeps drifting somewhere else. Worries quietly fill the space I should be present in. I never really explained anything to him. I thought silence would make things simpler. But maybe my expressions have been speaking all along. And that's what quietly unsettles me now. Not that he doesn't know, but that he understands too much. In ways I never intended him to carry. I sat quietly beside him that afternoon. He was focused on his drawing, fully in his own world. I didn't interrupt. I just stayed close. I leaned in and looked at the paper. 3 figures stood apart from each other. The space between them felt intentional. I recognized myself in the drawing. My face looked tired, even in his lines. My husband stood turned away. There were no bright colors this time. No small details like he usually adds. Just simple lines that felt honest. I asked him softly who it was. He answered without hesitation. "It's us." I didn't respond right away. I stayed there, holding the moment quietly. Something in me shifted without words. I wasn't just seeing the drawing anymore. I was seeing how he understands us, how this home feels to him. And in that quiet moment, I understood something simple. He doesn't need long explanations. He just needs to feel safe. I spent so much time trying to fix things outside, making sure everything looked stable and under control, but I missed what was quietly happening inside our home. I thought money was the biggest weight we carried. I kept calculating, adjusting, planning silently, but feelings filled the room more than numbers ever did. I used to think being a good mother meant being flawless, holding everything together without showing cracks. But being present feels different from being perfect. Children don't listen only to words. They notice the pauses, the tone, the unspoken tension, and somehow they carry it in their own quiet way. I began to understand something I had avoided. Silence doesn't always protect. Sometimes it quietly builds distance instead. I cannot control everything that happens. There will always be things beyond me, but I can choose how I show up each day. Change doesn't need to be loud or immediate. It doesn't have to fix everything at once. Sometimes one honest step is enough. Maybe that's what he was waiting for all along. Not solutions or perfect answers, just a presence that feels real and steady. That night, I put my phone down earlier than usual. The house felt quieter without the constant noise. I sat beside him, allowing myself to simply be there. I asked about his day, not out of habit this time. I waited after asking, giving space for an answer. It felt different when I wasn't rushing. He began to speak slowly, choosing his words. Small things I used to overlook started to surface. I stayed with him, without interrupting the moment. I found myself smiling, without forcing it. It came from feeling present, not from trying to fix anything. Somehow, he noticed that too. Later, I spoke to my husband, keeping it simple. We didn't go into anything heavy, just a few words to reopen the space between us. We sat there, without pressure. No one tried to prove a point. It felt unfamiliar, but easier to breathe. The house didn't change overnight. The routines stayed the same, but something in the air felt lighter. And the most noticeable shift was small. He started smiling again, just a little. But this time it stayed longer. I used to think a good home meant everything was in order. The house looked fine, but something felt distant. Maybe what matters isn't perfection, but how it feels inside. Problems still come, even on quiet days. I can't always control them, but I notice now. How I respond stays with them longer. I explain things often, thinking they understand, but they don't follow words as much as they follow patterns. What they see becomes what they remember. Sometimes I stay quiet to avoid making things worse. I thought silence was safer, but maybe silence also teaches them to hide. On the days I choose to sit beside them, nothing grand happens. Just small moments, quiet presence, and somehow that feels enough. I used to wait for the right time to fix everything. Now I see. Small gestures every day matter more. They quietly build something lasting. I don't need to have all the answers. I just need to stay open to learning. Even from the parts of me I used to ignore. And sometimes, without realizing it, they guide me. Not with words, but with how they respond. In their quiet way, they show me what matters. That day stayed with me longer than I expected. Not because something big happened, but because something shifted quietly. I began to see things in a way I hadn't before. I allowed myself to feel without rushing to fix everything. Some days I felt tired in ways I couldn't explain, and I stopped pretending that I always had it together. It didn't create distance like I feared. Instead, it made space for something more honest. Somehow, we felt closer without trying too hard. I used to think being present meant doing more, but sometimes it simply means staying. Even in silence, even without answers. I began to listen in a different way. Not just to words, but to pauses and small changes. Things I used to overlook started to feel important. There's a lot hidden in quiet moments. Not everything needs to be said out loud. Some things just need to be noticed. Small changes became part of my days. Nothing dramatic, just consistent and quiet. But over time, the atmosphere at home felt lighter. It didn't start with a big decision, just a quiet pause I almost ignored. And in that pause, I finally saw what mattered. I find myself sitting beside him more often now. Not because something is wrong, but because it feels right to stay. The quiet moments seem to hold more meaning than before. I don't always have the right words when he looks at me. Sometimes I just listen, even when I feel unsure inside. And somehow, that feels enough for today. Maybe what he needs was never perfection. Not the perfect home or perfect answers. Just someone who is truly there, even in the simplest way. Sometimes I wonder if other mothers feel this too. The quiet doubts, the small realizations that come and go. It feels comforting to think we might not be alone in this. I'm Clara, and this is a small part of my journey. If this feels familiar, you're welcome to stay a little longer. We can take it one step at a time together.